Welcome to another episode of Extreme Expat Stories, Episode 10. How I started over in Thailand, but no one back home knows I'm alive. Hey, I came across your channel a few weeks ago, and I haven't been able to stop watching. I guess because I see myself in some of the stories, but also because none of them are quite like mine. So, here it is. I'm writing under a different name. You'll understand why soon enough. Just know this isn't fiction. I'm real. The tuk-tuk fumes, the street dogs on Soy 38, the late-night noodles with too much chili. All of it is my reality now. But nobody back in Vancouver even knows I'm still alive. Not because I did anything illegal. Not because I ran from the law. Just because I never told anyone I stayed. 5 years ago, I stepped off a plane at Suvarnabhumi with a single bag and a borrowed name on my hostel check-in form. I was 34, burnt out, done pretending. Back home, I was a corporate strategist for a mid-sized bank. PowerPoint decks, boardroom jargon, Monday morning stand-ups that drained the soul. My girlfriend, well, ex-girlfriend now, was finishing med school. Everyone said we were the perfect couple. Sarah was brilliant, driven, destined for great things. She'd talk about our future over dinner, the house we'd buy in Kitsilano, the kids we'd have, the life we'd build together. I'd nod and smile and feel like I was drowning in someone else's dream. The funny thing is, I was good at my job. Really good. I had a corner office by 32, a salary that made my parents proud, and a boss who kept hinting at partnership track. But every morning felt like putting on a costume. The pressed shirts, the confident handshake, the way I'd lean back in meetings and say things like, let's circle back on that. It was all performance art. My father used to call me every Sunday, voice bright with pride. How's my successful son doing? He'd ask. Living the dream, Dad, I'd reply. And we'd both pretend that wasn't the hollowest phrase in the English language. The office had a view of Cole Harbour. Most people would have killed for that. And yet every morning, I'd walk into that building feeling like I was sinking, like the elevator was lowering me into something I wouldn't come back from. I remember one afternoon during a budget review, my boss was talking about quarterly projections and I just zoned out. Not out of boredom, more like existential nausea. I realized I was 34 and couldn't remember the last time I had felt joy that wasn't tied to accomplishment. Not love, not freedom, just the next win, the next promotion, the next thing that was supposed to make me feel like I mattered. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I remember because Sarah was on call at the hospital, and I was supposed to meet her parents for dinner. Her mother had made reservations at some upscale place in Yaletown, the kind of restaurant where they put your napkin on your lap and charged $30 for 3 scallops. I was sitting in my car outside the restaurant, engine running, watching well-dressed people walk in and out, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't sit through another conversation about real estate prices and retirement planning and when Sarah and I were going to take the next step. I drove home instead, didn't call, didn't text, just sat in my apartment staring at the wall until Sarah came home at 2 a.m., exhausted and furious. What happened to you? She asked, and I couldn't give her an answer because I didn't know. I'd been asking myself the same question for months. That's when the sleeplessness started. Not insomnia exactly, more like my brain refusing to shut down. I'd lie awake cataloging all the ways I was failing to be the person everyone expected me to be. The reliable boyfriend, the promising employee, the son who had it all figured out. Sarah would be breathing softly next to me, and I'd feel like a fraud lying beside her. Then one morning, I just didn't go to work. I turned off my phone, went offline, took the train to the airport, bought the cheapest international ticket I could find to a place I vaguely remembered from a backpacking trip in my 20s, Thailand. I've been there once before, right after college. 3 weeks of hostel hopping with my buddy Jake before we both got real jobs. We'd taken overnight trains to Chiang Mai, gotten food poisoning from street vendors, and spent entire days lounging on beaches and Koh Phi Phi. Back then, it felt like vacation. This time, it felt like escape. I didn't plan to disappear, not at first, but once I was here, something shifted. Bangkok hit me like a fever. The colors, the smells, the sound of 1,000 motorbikes weaving through traffic like it was choreography. I stayed in a crumbling guest house in Satorn with paper thin walls and a rooftop that smelled like mildew and jasmine. Every night, I sat on that roof and watched the city shimmer in heat and possibility. The guest house was run by an old Thai woman who spoke broken English and called everyone darling. She'd bring me instant coffee in the mornings and shake her head at my obvious hangover. You drink too much shinya, she'd say, but she'd smile when she said it. Her name was Kun Male, and she treated the place like a halfway house for lost souls. Most of the long-term residents were middle-aged Western men who'd come to Thailand for reasons they didn't like to discuss. There were roosters in the alley that crowed at all hours. Kids played barefoot soccer in the streets with crushed cans. One night I watched a vendor set up his entire satay cart during a thunderstorm, umbrella between his knees, whistling as if the lightning was part of the playlist. It felt like living inside someone else's dream. I started keeping a small journal around this time. I'd write down names of streets, dishes I tried, overheard phrases I didn't understand. I wanted to believe this would be temporary, that I was just collecting experiences before heading back home. But somewhere between Loy Krathong and Songkran, it stopped feeling like a vacation and started feeling like erosion. Not of the place, of me. The person I'd been in Vancouver was dissolving like sugar in rain. For the first time in years, I felt unseen, and that was a relief. The first few months, I drifted, ate street food from vendors who didn't speak English, took overnight trains to nowhere, third class sleeper cars with no air conditioning and crying babies and the smell of instant noodles. I slept on floors and hammocks and sometimes under the stars in places where no one knew my name. I'd lie if I said wasn't scared. I was, but fear started to feel like proof that I was still alive. In those early days, I'd walk through markets in Chatuchak or along the Chao Phraya River, and I'd catch glimpses of myself on storefront windows. The person looking back was thinner, more weathered, with eyes that seemed to actually see things. My hands were getting rough from sleeping on concrete and bamboo. My skin was darkening from hours in the sun. I was becoming someone else, cell by cell. In Chiang Rai, I spent 2 weeks volunteering at a dog shelter just for something to do. The dogs barked at everyone at first, but one, a three-legged mutt named Gao, followed me everywhere. The expat who ran the place was a German woman named Petra, who'd been there for 15 years. She said I had good ghost energy, whatever that meant. She'd been a nurse in Munich before she came to Thailand, and she had the same hollow look in her eyes that I recognized from my own mirror. You running from something? She asked me one evening as we fed the dogs. Yeah, I said, myself. She nodded like that made perfect sense. Most of us are. I remember lying awake in my mosquito net at night, listening to distant karaoke machines playing 90s Thai ballads and the occasional firecracker. I started wondering if maybe I was disappearing, not just socially, but spiritually. The version of me who used to panic over presentation deadlines was nowhere in sight. In his place was someone who could sleep through temple bells and didn't know what day of the week it was. Eventually, I ran out of excuses not to do something. I found a room in Phra Khanong, learned just enough Thai to haggle for fruit without getting laughed at, and started picking up odd digital gigs from forums and Telegram groups. Nothing major. Website fixes for startups, data entry for e-commerce sites, the occasional translation job, but enough to keep my head over water. My room was on the third floor of a narrow building squeezed between a motorcycle repair shop and a place that sold whole roasted chicken. The stairs were steep and narrow, and my neighbors were a mix of Thai families and other expats who'd washed up here for their own reasons. There was a British guy named Colin who'd been teaching English for 20 years and had the shakes from too much Mekong whiskey. A Russian woman named Anya who ran some kind of online business and never left her room before noon. We did nod at each other in the hallway, but never asked questions. There's something weirdly calming about life on the edge. Your days shrink to one focus: survive. You stop planning birthdays, vacations, retirement. You just look at the heat outside your window, sip your condensed milk coffee, and get to work. What came next wasn't planned either. I met someone, not in the bar, not online, just at a coffee stall near the BTS station. She made me laugh, taught me how to order without pointing, said my name like it belonged here. For a while, I let myself believe I could build a new version of myself with her. Something honest, small, but solid. Her name was Nim, which means soft in Thai. She was 28, studying economics at Chulalongkorn University, and worked part-time at her aunt's restaurant in Tonglor. She had a quiet smile and always said, "Jai yen yen," calm heart, whenever I got worked up about visa renewals or slow Wi-Fi. We'd meet after her shifts and eat guai tiao mu with crushed peanuts and vinegar. I thought that's what healing looked like. Nim was the first person in Thailand who seemed genuinely curious about me. Not my story or where I came from, but who I was in the present moment. She'd ask me what I thought about the monks we'd seen them in the morning, or why I always ordered the same coffee, or what I was reading on my phone. Simple questions that somehow felt deeper than any conversation I'd had in years. She liked to draw temple outlines in her notebook while we talked. She said her dream was to open a gallery in Chiang Mai one day, not to sell anything, just to keep the art safe from the rain. That kind of dreaming rubbed off on me. For the first time in years, I wanted something that didn't involve metrics or approval. We'd take weekend trips to places like Ayutthaya or Kanchanaburi, riding second-class trains with vinyl seats and vendors selling grilled squid. She'd point out things I never would have noticed, the way certain trees only grow near temples, or how the light changes colors just before the rainy season. Being with her felt like seeing Thailand through clean glasses for the first time. But she left, quietly, no drama. One day she just didn't show up to our usual noodle spot, and her number stopped working. I went to her aunt's restaurant, but the woman behind the counter just shook her head and said Nim had gone back to her family in the provinces. I didn't chase her. Maybe I should have. Maybe she was never mine to begin with. Maybe she saw something in me, a fracture, a flicker of something missing, and decided not to wait around for the collapse. Years later, I still think about her. I wonder if she opened the gallery in Chiang Mai, if she remembers the Farang who couldn't quite explain why he was here but couldn't leave either. After that, I stopped pretending to be in transition. I stopped calling home. At first, it was just laziness, then shame, then habit. The more time passed, the harder it became to reach out. What would I say? Hey, it's me. I vanished 5 years ago. I'm still alive, still in Thailand. No, I'm not coming back. No, I can't explain why. I didn't even have a concrete reason to stay anymore. I just knew I couldn't go back. Going back would mean explaining the choices I made, the people I ghosted, the mother I haven't spoken to in 3 Christmases, the friends who probably think I died somewhere, the woman who once told me I was the only person who made her feel safe, and who I left with nothing but an unanswered message. My phone still has Sarah's number in it. Sometimes I'll see her name and remember the way she used to curl up against me on Sunday mornings, making plans for our future. I wonder if she finished her residency, if she's married now, if she tells people about the boyfriend who just disappeared one day, or if she's edited me out of her story entirely. Somewhere along the line, I started answering to a different name. It was easier that way. No baggage, no past, just a polite Farang who tips well and knows the difference between krap and ka. I built something here, not big, not flashy, just a quiet rhythm. A rental room with sun coming through the curtains. A push bike I ride along the canal in the mornings. Friends who don't ask questions. A life that fits like a loose shirt, light, breathable, easy to disappear in. I got a job helping a small digital agency run their back-end systems. The pay was enough to live. My coworkers thought I was a traveling consultant. I never corrected them. I stopped keeping a calendar. Sometimes I'd forget the month until I heard fireworks outside and realized it was New Year's Eve. The agency was run by a Thai guy named Kiki, who'd studied in Australia and spoke English with a slight accent that made everything sound like a question. He was kind but incurious, which suited me perfectly. As long as I showed up and did the work, he didn't care about my visa status or my background. The office was in a converted shophouse in Ekamai, and I'd spend my days fixing broken websites and managing databases with the sound of construction and traffic drifting through the windows. My colleagues were a mix of local developers and other expats. There was James, an Australian who'd been in Thailand for a decade and had 2 kids with his Thai wife. Emma, a British woman who'd come for a teaching job and never left. We'd grab lunch together sometimes, but our conversations stayed safely in the present tense. We were all running from something, and we respected each other's need for silence. And yet, there are nights when I lie awake and try to remember the voice of my father, the way he used to say my name when I walked through the front door after work. "That's my boy," he'd say, and I'd feel like I was exactly where I belonged. I wonder if he still checks my old room, if he talks about me like I'm coming back someday. I wonder if my photo's still on the mantle. My parents are in their 70s now. My mother has diabetes, and my father has been having heart problems. I know this because I still check their Facebook pages sometimes, late at night when the guilt becomes unbearable. I see pictures of them at family gatherings, and they look smaller somehow, older. There's an empty space at the table where I used to sit, and I wonder if they set a place for me out of habit or hope. Sometimes I think about reaching out. I draft emails I never send. "Hi, Mom, I'm okay. I'm in Thailand. I'm sorry I left without saying goodbye. I'm sorry for Christmas 2019, 2020, and 2021. I'm sorry for missing Dad's birthday. I'm sorry for being a coward." Then I stared at the screen until it goes black, and I closed the laptop. Because I know the second I make contact, the illusion breaks. Back home, I still exist as a question mark, a story told in hushed tones at family gatherings. "Remember him? He just vanished." Some people probably think I'm dead. Some probably wish I was. I've become the cautionary tale that parents tell their kids about what happens when you don't appreciate what you have. But here in Bangkok, I'm someone else. Not better, not worse, just rewritten. I wake up to the sound of motorbikes and monks chanting in the alley below. I drink too much iced coffee from a cart run by a woman who calls me Nong, little brother. I nod at the street dog that guards the 7-Eleven near my apartment. His name is Lucky, and he's been there longer than I have. I have conversations in broken Thai that end in laughter and confusion and smiles. The vendor at the fruit stand always gives me extra mango because I'm the only Farang who says thank you in Thai. The tailor who hemmed my pants knows my measurements by heart. The woman who does my laundry folds my shirts the same way my mother used to. These small intimacies have become my anchor. They're not deep relationships, but they're real. They're built on presence, not history. When I walk through my neighborhood, I feel like I belong somewhere again. Not because of what I've accomplished or who I used to be, but because I show up. I exist here, in the present tense, and that's enough. But there's also a deep, gnawing ache, the kind that doesn't shout but whispers your real name when you least expect it. In dreams, in quiet afternoons, in the middle of a sentence spoken in Thai, when you suddenly forget the word in your mother tongue. Some mornings, I stare in the mirror while brushing my teeth and mouth my old name, just to see if it fits. It never quite does. It's like trying on a jacket that once felt tailored but now just feels tight in the shoulders. I know I could go back. I could explain, rebuild, reconnect. But I think some part of me needed this exile, this self-imposed disappearance, to feel real again, to strip away everything I thought I was supposed to be, and find out what was left underneath. What's left is smaller than I expected, quieter, but it's mine. I don't know what this story is exactly. It's not redemption. It's not tragedy. It's not a warning. It's just what happens when you step so far off the map that you forget how to read it. Maybe that's enough. If you share this, change the name. Hell, change the city if you want. I don't need anyone tracking me down. I just needed someone to hear it. Thanks for listening. Michael, somewhere in Bangkok.